It is just after 1 a.m. on November 1st, 1943, an hour when the world feels frozen, suspended between darkness and dawn. But in the North Atlantic, nothing is still. A violent storm thrashes the sea into towering 15-foot walls of water, and in the middle of this chaos, the USS Bowery fights its way through the night, searching for an enemy that does not want to be found. Contact 8,000 yards at bearing 170. The words crackle through the dimly lit Combat Information Center. Radar has spotted something big, something moving, out on the fringes of the storm. Within seconds, Lieutenant Charles Harris Hutchins, just 30 years old, yet carrying the hard expression of a man aged by war, snaps an order that cuts through the rumble of the Bowery's engines. Come to 170. Flank speed. The destroyer escort leans into its turn, cutting through the mountainous waves with thunderous crashes. Salt water sprays over the bow as the Bowery surges forward, her crew gripping whatever they can as she plows into the storm with renewed purpose. Only 5 nautical miles away, hidden by darkness and violently churning water, the German U-boat U-405 rides the surface. A Type VIC submarine, with its iconic low silhouette and steel-gray conning tower, it is momentarily vulnerable, batteries recharging, diesel engines rumbling, crew exhausted. In the bowels of the vessel, a lone hydrophone operator sits with headphones pressed tightly to his ears, filtering the endless ocean noise for one specific signature. Then he stiffens. Propellers. Large ones. Churning fast through water. High-speed ship bearing 90. Approaching quickly. The message reaches Corvettan Captain Rolf Heinrich Hauptmann, a seasoned officer with sharp instincts. He knows instantly what it means. No German surface vessels are in this sector. No one friendly dares the storm tonight. The Americans have found them. Alarm. Prepare to dive. All crew to battle stations. Alarms wail through the confined metal corridors. Men scramble down ladders, slamming watertight doors, shutting valves, securing equipment as the U-boat groans and sinks beneath the waves. Every man knows the danger. To be caught on the surface at night by a destroyer is usually a death sentence. Back above, the USS Bowery cuts through the storm like a blade, but Hutchins sees nothing. Darkness swallows the world beyond 100 feet. Yet radar keeps guiding them. Range decreasing, steady on course. Then suddenly, the blip disappears. Sir, contact lost. Hutchins's jaw clenches. The U-boat has vanished from radar, slipping beneath the waterline. That means the fight has entered its most dangerous phase. A submerged submarine is unpredictable, silent, lethal. He lowers his voice. Half speed. Any returns on sonar. A tense hush settles over the deck. The ship rolls again through a wall of water as sonar pings echo through the void. Seconds feel like minutes. Operators lean forward, eyes fixed on their screens. Then, sonar contact. 2,000 yards, bearing 170. The men stiffen as adrenaline floods the room. Come to 170. Increase to 3/4 speed. In the U-boat's control room, the crew hears the distinct pulses of sonar bouncing off their hull. The Bowery is hunting them with precision. The hydrophone operator's voice is strained. They're close, Captain, very close. Hauptmann orders a quick maneuver. If they can slip underneath the destroyer, maybe they can escape, maybe even set up a torpedo shot. But the ocean is unforgiving. The storm makes precise navigation almost impossible. Meanwhile on the Bowery, sonar continues to feed data, range shrinking every second. 600 yards. Hutchins wastes no time. Prepare port launchers for depth charges. Sailors rush across the slippery deck, rain and seawater pelting them as they ready the charges, barrel-shaped metal cylinders packed with explosives. Their only job now is to roll death into the deep. Then sonar suddenly loses the trace again. Contact lost, sir. The target slipped beneath us. Hutchins reacts instantly. Full right rudder. Bring the stern around. Range. 500 yards, bearing starboard, closing fast. The Bowery swings sharply, her stern coming around violently as men brace themselves. 300 yards. Fire. The depth charges release with heavy metallic thuds. One after another, they plunge into the sea, sinking beside the U-boat like silent predators. A second later, boom, boom, boom. The ocean erupts. Inside U-405, the effects are immediate. The submarine shudders violently as shockwaves slam into its bow. Lights flicker. Men are thrown against machinery. Flooding in the forward compartments, Captain. Hauptmann knows what that means. At this depth, Water pressure is merciless. A leak cannot be fixed, not under the surface. He has only one choice, risky and desperate. Surface the boat. Man all guns. The submarine shoots upward, forced by flooding and Hopman's order. Above, the crew of the Bowery, still staring into the dark ocean, sees the unimaginable. A massive gray shape bursts out of the depths behind them, crashing through the waves like a rising steel whale. It surfaced on our stern. Hutchins snaps another command. Searchlights. Illuminate the target. Harsh white beams cut through the darkness, landing squarely on you, 405. German sailors pour out of the conning tower, slipping and fighting the storm as they rush to their 20mm guns. Their barrels flash with rapid bursts. The battle explodes into chaos. Shells whiz past American sailors, pinging against metal, tearing into railings, ripping into the deck. Wind roars so fiercely that shots fired miss purely from the heaving seas. Still, the Germans keep firing, unyielding, desperate. The Bowery answers in kind. All guns, local control. Pointer fire. Gunners swing their weapons toward the illuminated U-boat. The first shots blast water into the air, missing by inches, but within seconds they begin hitting steel. Sparks fly. German gunners fall. The conning tower becomes a whirl of smoke, splinters, and screams. But the U-boat crew knows survival hinges on their heavy 88mm deck gun. If they can bring it into play, even a single hit on Bowery's waterline could cripple or sink the American ship. German sailors scramble toward it. Men climbing over bodies, slipping, praying they can load and fire before Bowery finishes them. But Hutchins is already one step ahead. The Bowery's 4-inch guns lock directly onto the forward deck. They fire. The explosion is catastrophic. The 88mm gun disappears in a plume of smoke, twisted metal, and shattered bodies. When the spray settles, nothing remains but a mangled section of deck. Reports shout through the Bowery. Enemy deck gun destroyed. Heavy casualties on the U-boat. But U-405 refuses to die quietly. More German sailors rush out, taking over the 20mm platforms. One leaps onto the gun, even as a previous crew lies dead beside it. He fires blindly into the storm, trying to hit anything, everything. Yet the Bowery continues its circling attack run, hammering the conning tower with relentless fire. Every hit sends shrapnel spinning across the deck. Every blast forces another German gun to fall silent. Hutchins watches carefully through binoculars, soaked by rain and seawater, jaw clenched. He knows the truth. Conning tower hits won't sink a U-boat. They can kill the crew, they can immobilize weapons, but the pressure hull beneath remains intact. If he wants to finish this, he needs to deliver a killing blow. Something decisive. Something final. The storm rages harder. The Bowery creaks as she turns again, preparing another attack run. Every man aboard knows they are fighting not just an enemy, but the sea itself. The duel has become brutal, close, primal. Two vessels locked together in a deadly contest, each trying to survive a night that seems determined to consume them both. And Hutchins steels himself for the next move, knowing the battle is far from over. Black water heaves under the storm-torn sky as the USS Bowery circles back through the darkness, her bow crushed, her decks shuddering from the violence of the firefight. Spray lashes over the rails, blown sideways by the freezing Atlantic wind. On the bridge, Lieutenant Charles Hutchins stands with feet braced wide, rain streaming down the collar of his coat. He lifts his binoculars as the U-405 struggles across the waves only a few dozen yards away, her hull ruptured, her deck littered with fallen men. And in the chaos, through smoke, salt, and darkness, Hutchins sees the submarine beginning to turn. The bridge goes silent for half a heartbeat before he makes the choice. Ram it. The words crack like a gunshot. The helmsman does not hesitate. He spins the wheel, and the ship heaves in response. Steel groans. Water explodes along the hull. Men clutch whatever they can reach as the Bowery barrels forward at 27 knots. The ship buckles with a deafening crash, scraping violently along the U-405's side. Rivets scream. Metal tears. The bow folds inward like a crumpling jaw. Below the waterline, Chief Engineer Kenneth Lucas sees the plates buckle. A jagged seam splits open, and seawater roars into the compartment in a white torrent. Lucas stumbles backward, soaked and nearly blinded, then bellows for his damage control team. Men plunge into waist-deep water with wrenches and hammers, fighting to stem the flooding as the groaning engines shake the room like a living thing in pain. Above them, on the deck of the wrecked submarine, Corvettenkapitän Rolf Heinrich Hauptmann claws his way upright. The world around him tilts crazily. His men are scattered like broken puppets across the wet steel. But his voice still cuts through the sea's roar. Attack! The last remaining German sailors surge from the hatches with whatever weapons they can carry. Pistols, flare guns, even lengths of pipe. They swarm across their deck as the two vessels grind together. The Bowery's crew answers with pistols, rifles, and Thompson submachine guns, the flashes of muzzle fire shredding the dark. But not every American is armed. Some reach for shell casings, knives from the galley, or discarded tools. One sailor rips the pin from a flare and hurls it like a grenade. Another swings an entire misfired shell like a battering ram. Men scream, slip, fall, rise again. Wind-driven spray blasts across both decks as the ships twist in the waves. Anyone standing becomes a silhouette in a strobe of gun flashes. German sailors rush forward with desperate courage, but they fight from low ground with no cover, exposed on a deck that offers them nothing but blind hope. The Bowery's higher deck gives the Americans the advantage. Each step the German boarders take is met with a burst of fire that sends them collapsing backward into the sea or onto the steel at their feet. Through the chaos, the U-405 shudders again, not dead, not yet. Hauptmann's men, what remains of them, pull back toward the conning tower and try to regroup. Their submarine is a dying beast, but it still has teeth, for torpedoes remain in its tubes. If the Americans cannot finish the fight quickly, one of those torpedoes could kill them all. Full back. Hard to port. Hauptmann shouts. The battered submarine strains against the sea, engines coughing out their last fury. Slowly, agonizingly slowly, the U-405 begins to slip free from beneath the Bowery. On the American destroyer, gun crews attempt to angle their weapons downward toward the submarine's hull, but the angle is impossible. The ships are too close, too entangled. Instead, they fire at anything that moves on the U-boat's deck, driving back any man who dares approach the forward torpedo tubes. But down in the engine room, the real crisis is unfolding. Lucas and his soaked engineers struggle in rising water that now reaches their chests. The turbines cough and sputter as seawater splashes against red-hot metal. The men fight with frantic speed, packing shoring against the breach, hammering wedges, tightening valves while wading through churning water that surges with every swell. The ship feels heavier by the minute, lumbering forward under the weight of hundreds of tons of seawater. On deck, the Bowery's gunfire slackens as vantage points fade and the darkness thickens. For a moment, everything seems to slow. The storm, the gunfire, the shouting, until Hutchins sees the opportunity. Prepare torpedoes. A triple torpedo mount whirs alive, slewing slowly toward the drifting U-405. Gunners hold their breath. Fire. The torpedo erupts outward with a thunderous blast, cutting a white line across the black waves. Every man on the Bowery leans forward, watching. It misses by yards. The disappointment hits like a punch to the gut. On the U-405, Hauptmann sees the spray erupt harmlessly beside them. His face hardens. He wipes blood from his eyes and issues the most desperate order of the night. Turn around. Prepare torpedoes. The submarine, limping, nearly cracked in half, tries to bring its bow around. Men drag one another along the deck to load torpedoes, 15 survivors out of 45. Their hands tremble. Smoke burns their lungs. But they move because their captain's voice still cuts through the storm. Then the Bowery's searchlight, so bright it had blinded the Germans through the whole engagement, suddenly snaps dark. The sea becomes black again. Hauptmann freezes. So do his men. But Hutchins has made his gamble. With their target now blind, the Germans abandon the torpedo attack and seize the chance to escape. Abort attack. Hauptmann shouts. Turn to starboard. The U-boat pivots in the dark, desperate to vanish into the storm. It almost works, but the radar never lost track. Hutchins grips the railing. Enable the searchlight. The night is torn open again. The U-405 is right there, fully exposed, almost directly ahead. Ram it. Hauptmann shouts for evasive maneuvers, and the U-boat veers hard to avoid being crushed head-on. The Bowery misses the fatal collision by yards, but Hutchins isn't finished. Hard to starboard. The ship lurches through the water, engines screaming. The rear swings wide like a scythe. Depth charges. Canisters fly from the racks, tumbling and splashing around the submarine. The explosions come a breath later, massive, underwater blooms that churn the sea into a mountain of foam and fire. The U-405's hull shatters. The blast lifts the bow clean out of the water, slams it down again, and floods the already wounded submarine beyond any hope of salvation. Men are thrown across the deck like ragdolls. The conning tower slams sideways, cracking from its base. The ship begins to sink almost immediately, but the Germans do not reach for weapons. They reach for flares. Streaks of red flare into the sky, a plea for mercy, a final signal of surrender. The Americans watch the dying U-boat wallow on her side, and soon 15 survivors, including Hopman, climb onto rafts as the submarine groans and slips beneath the water. The Bory edges closer. Sailors lean over the rails, squinting through the waves. Then a lookout on the aft deck yells, "Flare astern, torpedo in the water," a distant flare. And beneath the storm, something long and pale streaks toward them. Another U-boat. Another attack. Hutchins instantly orders the stern toward the torpedo. A destroyer's stern is narrow, its smallest profile. The ship whirls, but that maneuver also drives them straight toward the German survivors in their rafts. There is no time, no space, no choice. The Americans watch helplessly as the life rafts drift dangerously close. Rain streaks across their faces. Some shout warnings to the Germans, who stare back with hollow, exhausted eyes. Moments later, the Bory surges past them in the darkness. They never see the torpedo. They never see another ship. Those 15 men, every last survivor of U-405, are lost to the Atlantic by morning. Above the waves, only silence remains. The battle is over, and USS Bory has won. But she is mortally wounded. Flooding rips through compartments below. Engineers fight with everything they have, even diving underwater inside their own ship to reach valves. Lucas and his men cling to machinery in darkness as seawater pounds through the breach. At last, with the water at their shoulders, they climb up through the roof hatch into the night. On the decks above, Hutchins watches as the ship settles lower and lower in the water. The storm hasn't softened. The cold is worse, and the damage is beyond repair. The order is given. Abandon ship. Sailors gather on the slanted decks, some slipping, some scrambling, some helping the wounded. They climb down lines into the freezing Atlantic and cluster in lifeboats as the waves crash over them. Lights flicker across the surface as rescue ships search through the darkness. The Bory, still shaking from internal explosions, dips forward. Her bow disappears under the waves. Then her stern. The destroyer slips into the sea, taking the scars of the battle with her, and 27 of the men who fought that night. Hutchins survives. Lucas survives. Many others do not. Later, Hutchins receives the Navy Cross, the nation's second highest decoration, for leading one of the most brutal, close-quarters destroyer versus submarine battles of the entire war. Yet in every interview, he insists the credit belongs to his crew. To the engineers who kept the turbines running in shoulder-deep water, to the gunners who fought through the storm, and to the men who clung to life rafts for hours waiting in the freezing dark. As dawn breaks over the Atlantic, the sea is calm again. The storm has passed. The waves roll gently where two ships once fought a battle, so close the men could see each other's eyes. And somewhere deep below, the wrecks of U-405 and USS Bory lie in the same silent dark, watched over by the cold, endless water that claimed them both.